Frustrated after he says people have been living on his land without permission for years. He says squatters have been living on his Southeast Atlanta property since the pandemic. Fox 5's Mary Smith breaking it all down for us tonight.
The owner of this 9-acre property tells us he plans to build fencing around the front of the property in an effort to keep people out.
It's frustrating that I'm having to spend so much money. I spent $10,000 on cleaning up garbage from vagrants.
Atlanta native David Morris, who now lives in California, owns this 9-acre property in Atlanta's Lakewood area. It's the site of his former nonprofit, Lakewood Environmental Arts Foundation. He said about 10 years ago, he started letting 4 people live on the property rent-free if they helped care for the land. But during the COVID pandemic, he closed the nonprofit and noticed even more people staying on his property.
Mistake number one. A lot of times people don't respect things that they don't earn, that they didn't pay for, that they didn't contribute to, that they have no investment in. You ever notice that if you're in business, the people who give you the hardest time are the people who pay the least? Why is that? Why is that? These are customers or clients that you shouldn't have been dealing with to begin. But a lot of times our heart and our empathy and wanting to see people in a better position, we will sacrifice and deal with a lot of things that we know that we shouldn't. But there are just certain people that should not be around you, certain energy that should not be around you. And this is one of those situations. So you created a habit of allowing people who did not deserve certain opportunities come onto your property, and then now you're trying to retroactively clean it up, and then you're running into a lot of pitfalls. But let's keep going.
Property.
The people who are living on the land started having other people live on the land, their friends.
See,
I tried to file eviction.
There you go right there. You're trying to file an eviction, but now you've allowed other people to already have permission, thereby you're creating a certain type of tendency. Let's keep going.
And the city of Atlanta said, sorry, we have a moratorium on evictions right now.
He says now, years later, he has about 8 people living on the property and was contacted by code enforcement to clean it up.
The last month, I've gone through 5 dumpsters.
And he says in recent months, at least one person living on the property filed a counterclaim for $190,000.
This is absolutely ridiculous. I live in Atlanta. This is absolutely ridiculous. You are living on my property and you turn around and file a counterclaim for nearly $200,000, you piece of man. What? This is the delusion that we're living in right now in modern day Babylon, in America right now. That someone would literally have the nerve to do that to you with no regard. Again, these are people that should not be around you. You have to be able to use your discernment and think about decisions for the long term. Again, any man that's listening, you need to be thinking about the next 100 years. How does this decision affect me long term? The fact that he lives in California, that created a problem for him. He decided to try to solve the problem by having 4 different families stay on the property for free without the proper parameters, boundaries, and guidelines in place. Number one, when you are entering into the realm of real estate and you're working with tenants, you want to make sure that you always appear bigger than what you are. What do I mean by that? When you look at how Walt Disney acquired Disneyland in Orlando, he used land trusts. Why did he use land trusts? Because the land trusts were a way to disguise his actual identity, because he understood that if people know that it is me, they're going to treat me differently and end up charging me more. or they'll end up taking advantage of me because they already know that I have a lot of money with this concept known as Disneyland. What people have to realize is that going back to the rules of military science, when you are engaging in real estate is a form of business. In this type of business, one of the vehicles that you should use to disguise and have anonymity should be a land trust. You also should use other individuals that would represent your company, and you can pay them in the sense of that person acting as an independent contractor in the position of, let's say, a president or vice president or an agent. And this is the person that should have the primary communication. And even if this is AI generated or whatever the circumstance may be, but these are the parties or the entities that should have the primary communication with the tenants. When they know it's just an individual, when they don't think that this is a large hedge fund or a corporation or whatever the circumstance may be, people will downplay you. They will test you. Are you not understanding that people are looking for weaknesses? Let's keep going.
That was dismissed, and there was no actual that counterclaim because they didn't show up in court. So it'll take I'm predicting another 30 days before the marshals will call me to schedule a time for me to have 5 people here to move everything from there to the street. I did get a writ of possession on Friday.
About a year ago.
And the fact that the person didn't even show up in court and then the case ends up getting dismissed, come on. Just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. That I've dealt with landlord tenant cases, man. This is absolutely ridiculous. These squatters have lost their mind. Who are you playing with? Who are you talking to? And the fact that it takes 30 days with the marshal, I mean, we have to get a better streamlined system in place. And that's something that, in working with our legislators, working with our judicial system, we have to be more efficient. It's absolutely astonishing.
Atlanta police visited the area where activists said about 24 of them were detained.
The entire medical staff of Stop Cop City camped on this land, and there's about 30 campers. And the police came in and pulled them out of their tents. I'm neutral. I'm not on either side.
Morris says he just wants everyone off his land so he can clean it up to build affordable housing.
We're going to build just a big fence here and a gate here and put no trespassing signs. I'm not going to build it until all the tenants are out and I start.
I mean, and you see that this guy he has a good heart, right? And I think that's a beautiful thing to have a good heart. He wants to have affordable housing. He wants to help the community, even though he's domiciled in California. He's clearly a person that has a giving heart and he wants to do something. At least that's how this is being portrayed. Unfortunately, however, people view kindness as weakness. You have to guard your heart. You have to be discerning on who you give your heart to, because then you can become jaded. So this is why when you enter into these type of transactions, when you enter into these type of dealings, you have to use different hybrid legal resources, such as land trusts, Wyoming LLCs, such as other agents, whether it could be different family members or actors or whoever, to act as contractors that are acting on your behalf. You have to always be bigger than what you are. This is just the nature of people. This is the nature of business. But again, squatter sues Atlanta property owner for nearly $200,000. Thank goodness he didn't show up and the case was dismissed. Outright ridiculous. And, I wish this brother well. The Porter perspective.